Hi, welcome to Truth Sentinel, watching over the truth in the news. Today's date is March the 27th, 2014. Just again, as usual, to remind you, we have a Facebook page, Scott Sentinel. Please visit. You can post comments there and also post any articles that you find that might be related to what we're talking about or something you want us to talk about. Also under videos, please write down comments or put comments in discussion section on YouTube for any topics you want discussed on this show. Okay, let's start with just a brief introduction to this channel. So Truth Sentinel is basically just looking through the news, doing a commentary on the news. It's an evolving channel, things are changing all the time. We're looking at the news, picking it apart, trying to find what we can see might be the truth, as mainstream media just seems to be falling apart, and it's more and more the responsibility of independent media to try to find out what it really is going on. And basically just trying to question what we read, question what we hear, question our governments, and trying to expose some of the propaganda that we see going on. If I mention something in an episode, though, that you disagree with, just let me know. I mean, I haven't necessarily made up my mind about things that I talk about, even if I give my opinions. You know, it's always good to look at the evidence and then share our views, share the information. There's a lot of conspiracies out there, and personally, I don't just believe all of them. I'm open-minded about all of them, though, but don't necessarily believe them all. Let's just find out between us what we believe, what we don't believe. Look at the evidence, look at the facts, and try to work out what is true. Because we certainly can't rely on mainstream media anymore. If you are an authority on a particular subject, please get in contact. We're getting more and more guests on if we can. We have some guests on today. Today's topic with guests will be Ukraine. Just one of the topics we'll be covering today. So today's news on the front page of the Daily Mail, Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin are splitting up. The good news is this will hopefully inspire Chris to write a new album of melancholic but melodic music. Gwyneth, of course, was in Sliding Doors. That was that film that looks at parallel universes. So maybe in another parallel universe they're still together. It's nice to think that. The latest on Malaysia flight MH370. Those three blurred objects on the satellite images now have turned into 122 blurred objects, but still nothing actually physical found, which has been shown to be this plane. It's been very, very odd the way information has come out in this whole saga to me. How about you? What did you think? What do you think about the way the information's come out? It seems strange, and when you get that feeling that something's not right, that's when the conspiracy theories do start to crop up, because people know that they're not being told everything. Something's going on. You know, basically, if people could trust authorities and governments, then it wouldn't be a problem. People would stop using their imaginations and trust people, but nobody trusts governments, newspapers, media anymore. So the Malaysian airlines have certainly been acting strangely. I mean, they suddenly, out of nowhere, said, "Oh, the plane must have crashed and there's no survivors." It seemed a bit premature without finding something, particularly when they had a big search underway. They only need to pull out the tailplane or something, and they could then say that. It just seemed a bit premature. Still no evidence of the plane yet. I think they probably will find some evidence. But I agree with some of the family members that we're being lied to about something. There seems to be a very long delay over this particular incident. As to why, I just don't know. I'm not speculating at the moment. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the intelligence community have been involved in this in some way or other. I mean, they don't just sit around playing cards every day. There are things going along in the background with the intelligence community, MI5, CIA, KGB, etc. We need to be open-minded anyway as to what's happening in this situation. Other news, mudslides in Washington state have left hundreds missing and feared dead, as a whole village was buried. Hopefully there will still be a few more survivors there, although I think hope's dying fast. Copenhagen Zoo has carried on with its euthanasia program. Just killed a family of lions this time. This is the same zoo that killed a healthy giraffe recently because it was infecting the gene pool. So they've just killed a family of 4 lions to make way for a new young male lion. Apparently it's in the best interests of all concerned, so hopefully the dead family of lions can appreciate that. Also, in the news today, there was I read that the UK Public Health England Association have decided that it's really time to consider mass fluoridation of water, and have urged councils to act, despite the fact there's a lot of evidence by some scientists and organisations saying that actually fluoride is not beneficial to your teeth and is in fact poisonous and can be harmful to health. And at the end of the day, it's forced medication, isn't it, really? I mean, personally, I would just say, yeah, I don't really want it in the water. I'm not sure about it. I just rather it wasn't there. You know, I can brush my teeth if I want to. I don't need you to feed me this stuff, you know. Russian forces continue building up on the borders of East Ukraine. More on that later. In this week, in the general week's news, North Korea have been launching missiles in a show of military might. I mean, quite why this situation's allowed to continue. You know, we've got it's a ticking time bomb. World leaders, again, ineffective in dealing with this situation. It's just going to be left to fester. I mean, it comes down to playground mentality, in my opinion. If you see if you see a child alone in the playground, then you go and find out what's going wrong, what's going on. You know, what can you do to help them to mix with other people. You know, and if they're bullying people, then you try to get to the root of the problem and deal with it. If you just leave it alone, then things are going to escalate. You don't, you know, especially when there's threats of violence, which there always seems to be coming from North Korea. One day it's going to lead to something bad, and in my opinion, and I think in a lot of other people's opinion, it could all be prevented if people took it seriously and our world leaders did something about it. In the UK here, we had our budget, which a lot of people get excited about. Newspapers and TV, they all get excited about it, but I just don't understand. It just makes no difference whatsoever. I never notice any difference after the budget. And the reason is because the amounts that are mentioned just they're of no consequence. I mean, there's 1p off a pint of beer. Big deal. You know, when I go out and you know, they charge me £4 for a pint of beer, and now it's going to be like £3.99. So what? You know, it doesn't make any difference. But the media still try and buy into the idea that it makes a difference. And I was watching a news report, and there was one girl, just someone interviewed on the street, who said, and these were her, I'm quoting her, "It's good because it will be much cheaper to go out and have a drink." You know, I mean, obviously this girl's not that gifted in the mathematics department, because you know, even if she went out with 10 people and they had 10 drinks each, they're not going to save an awful lot of money. You know, if they're really not. They probably didn't have to look too far to find someone with that level of mathematics either, because it does seem like our whole population's being dumbed down at the moment. I mean, this 1p off a pint of beer is not going to help. People are in 1.4 trillion pounds of debt in the UK at the moment. That comes from the Centre for Social Justice. People are struggling to survive, and our leaders are making laws when they have no comprehension of what it's like to struggle financially themselves. So they're not going to make any laws that affect us, because as far as they're concerned, everything's fine. Our politicians are a joke, really. I mean, the whole system has reached its expiry date. They're just playing games with people's lives. I mean, listen to our Houses of Parliament. For those people who aren't in the UK, this is what goes on in our Houses of Parliament, how they discuss really serious topics. It's just full of public schoolboys who still haven't grown up. So have a listen to this anyway.
To be fair to the Labour Party,
Order! Mr. Gove! Order! Order! You really are a very overexcitable individual. You need to write out 1,000 times. I will behave myself at Prime Minister's questions. The Prime Minister.
And these are the people who are running our society. So it's not too surprising that our society is in the state it's in. Further games were played on an international scale this week. Did you hear that Barack Obama, David Cameron, Angela Merkel and Chinese President Xi Jinping were playing a computer game depicting terrorists stealing nuclear materials and planting a dirty bomb, and they had to decide what to do in different situations, and then the information was shared anonymously between them. Maybe things like that are a secret way they can tell each other what they're prepared to do in a real situation, so that they can plan them and then they know how each other's going to react. Turkey shot down a Syrian military jet this week as well. And I really thought that was going to spark something off, but so far, thankfully, not. It just seems there's so many possible sources of another big war, almost losing count. Russian troops are building up on the eastern borders of Ukraine. NATO forces are in that area, so are Turkish forces. Peacekeeping forces. Just a feeling that they're all just converging on this area for a big war that's going to happen soon. And what's your opinion on that? Let me know in the comments section anyway. Kim Jong-un shot his ex-girlfriend at firing squad this week, apparently, if the media is to be believed. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of guys who wouldn't mind doing that to their exes, and girls too. Hope it doesn't affect his next relationship anyway. A man tried to commit suicide this week. I'm sure he wasn't the only one, but he tried to do it in a novel way by jumping in a tiger enclosure. But the tigers didn't want to eat him. Maybe they're kind of like trying to keep on good behaviour because they don't want to be euthanized. I don't know. Anyway, just to let you know a bit more about the purpose of Truth Sentinels and a bit about me. I'm not going to say too much about me, but just in case we've got any new listeners, just want to welcome you to this channel. I'm coming from the point of view of a normal person who's travelled a lot to a lot of the locations that appear in the news, like Fukushima in Japan and Ukraine and Thailand and lots of other places. And basically just trying to open this channel up so everyone can contribute, and we can have guests on, normal people. You don't have to it would be nice if you're an authority on a subject, but we're not looking for necessarily professors or experts, although those people will be welcome too. I may actually be going to Ukraine soon as well to do a report on the ground from Ukraine, depending on what happens in the next week or so. But I plan to interview a lot of guests. We'll interview people to do with UFOs, or covering events on the ground. And if possible, we're going to travel to those areas when funds become available. At the moment, this is a self-funded channel. People who want this channel to talk about something particular, you can just leave some comments and say, please can you talk about this? And assuming I read the comment, then I'm going to try and do that. Okay, also, we'll interview anyone. Even I've sometimes wonder why you get those trolls that leave offensive messages on people's memorial websites to say sons or daughters that have just died. I mean, I like to try and understand people why would you do such a thing. So if you've ever done that, I mean, that you never know, there may be someone listening that's done that. I'd like to interview someone like that, and we'll interview you fairly. You won't just get lots of abuse. That's the kind of thing you would do. I'd just like to know why on earth would you actually go on someone's website who has set up a memorial to someone who just died, and then leave sadistic comments. Just what's the thinking behind it? And talking of people who gate crash funerals, this week Pastor Fred Phelps from Westboro Baptist Church, he died. I wonder if anyone will be picketing his funeral. He's from the so-called America's Most Hated Family. They used to go to funerals of dead soldiers and picket and say they deserve to die and that kind of thing. Also very against gays and things like that. Anyway, he's dead, so maybe the rest of his family will have a chance to say what they really think, because he did seem like a very scary guy. I had the misfortune of flicking across channels today. I was just looking at how bad our TVs have got. The kind of rubbish we've got on TV these days. And has anyone seen Honey Boo Boo? If you think that society's fine and that a lot of people are exaggerating as to the state of society, just make yourself watch one episode of Honey Boo Boo. That should that should help persuade you that we need to look at what's happening in society. Just a roundup of last episodes. Last episode we looked at the Malaysia flight MH370. We'll talk about that soon. Ukraine, ongoing situation there. It's been a fairly quiet week, at least internationally, for news on Ukraine, although I think probably people in Ukraine have been hearing about lots of things happening there. We talked about overpopulation and maybe the possibility that there's a global elite planning to reduce the population of the world extensively. Let's hope that is a conspiracy theory and not true. It's nice to be wrong about these conspiracies, because if it's not wrong, if they are intending to kill lots of people, then that's not a good thing for any of us, even people who don't believe in conspiracies. I think we talked about erosion of freedoms, protests in Turkey. We touched on a few other topics like Lady Diana. Sometimes we're just going to touch on topics, not talk about them too in depth at the moment, because we want to bring people on to talk about these topics. So if you're an authority in any of these topics, please get in contact. And we'll basically peel away different layers. We'll return to some topics later on in other shows and look at them more in depth, and that's a promise. We're not just going to carry on, although this channel is also a commentary on the news, so there will be some surface level analysis as well. We're basically evolving into something and developing a format. Let's talk about the Malaysia flight a bit today. I think people are getting a bit fed up of it because there's been so little actual facts that have come out over a fairly extended period of time, that it's just been It's just become ridiculous, really. I mean, the kind of facts that we can talk about, the plane apparently dropped to 12,000 feet, according to CNN, when it suddenly changed course. It was at 35,000 feet, it was at 40,000 feet. People were speculating that maybe at that altitude, above 40,000, then people would have started to become asphyxiated. The disappearance occurred whilst handing over to Vietnam. I mean, the one thing I haven't really understood from this whole saga is these satellite images. I mean, as far back as the 80s and before that, there was supposed to be technology that could read a newspaper from space, and yet so many, 20, 30 years later, the best that it can come up with is a blob from space. It just seems really odd to me. I don't really buy that, to be honest. I would have thought that satellites these days could have focused a lot closer onto objects and worked out if it's part of a plane. And they obviously seem to be so far away from finding this plane. Or are they? I mean, this is what we're talking about. Are they lying? Have they actually found something? They just, it takes a long time to filter out into the news. I'm not sure, to be honest. But it does seem like people are time wasting. They have a lot more information and they're just holding on to it. It just seems like our technology in the last week or two has suddenly become really backward. A plane can disappear despite the fact that we've got all this radar, satellite technology. And satellite images are now pathetic. You can just only take a blob. You can't read newspapers from space. Just a blob. Planes are flying around undetected around the world now. Boeing 777s, you could easily just turn off a transponder and you can just go missing. I mean, if this is the case, then this has a lot of repercussions for anyone who flies regularly. And I'm one of those people. I want to know what's happened here, because I want to know that someone can't just switch off a transponder and then I'm going to end up in the sea. There's been so many theories. It's just they're all completely speculative. It's not even worth speculating too much until we have more facts. The BBC fobbed off everyone the other day by just saying perhaps we'll never know why this happened, and that's how I think a lot of them are going to try and leave it. But people want to find out the truth. People have been led to believe that planes don't just disappear like this. This either looks like complete incompetence, or that we've been lied to about the technology around us, that it's not quite as good as we think, or it's a cover-up. Take your pick. I mean, there are such a thing as cover-ups, and there is an intelligence community that are doing things behind the scene. I mean, that's why we have the MI5, the CIA. They're not watching EastEnders. They do actually get up to stuff. So, it's possible this plane was shot down and covered up. It wouldn't be the first time. TWA Flight 800. I remember the day that was shot down, and then there was witnesses on TV who said they saw a missile coming up from the sea and then hit the plane, which exploded. Now, I trust members of the public like that, normal members of the public, saying what they saw, and that's partly the idea of this channel, is that normal members of the public you can trust. If they say they saw something, when I saw that video of the guy saying what he saw, I believed he was saying what he saw, but then it was completely hushed up, and apparently no, it was an explosion on board, when clearly it wasn't. It was a missile, and there's people who've written books about that. If you want to check out more about flight TWA 800, it might actually help understand a bit more why people are questioning what's happened with this particular plane. So I'll just tell you a little bit about flight TWA 800. The probable cause, according to the National Transportation Safety Board, was eventually said to be an explosion of flammable air vapors in a fuel tank, most likely from a short circuit. But then, a lot of other people say the crash was due to a US Navy missile test that's went astray. I mean, at the end of the day, if that did happen, then the best thing is just to be honest. But they can't these days because they've got so many lawsuits to consider. And that's why I think another reason why things are hushed up sometimes, just because of lawsuits. I mean, there's been documentaries about this, which you can see. The actual incident occurred, many years ago. But this documentary that I saw was on in 2013, alleging that the investigation was a cover-up, and they took statements from 6 members of the original investigation team who've since retired, who also filed a petition to reopen the probe. And this is the thing about a lot of conspiracies theories. If you actually do investigate them, you've got very credible people that are actually questioning the facts. The original investigation team of Flight TW-800 want to reopen the investigation. That's why it should have been taken seriously. It's not a conspiracy theory. And the truth does matter. If planes are getting shot out of the sky by the military, either by accident or deliberately, people deserve to know. Okay, and another thing I saw which made me, which really made me despair with society. Australian pilot Russell Adams is an internet sensation, were the headlines I saw. And this is in regard to flight MH370. Why is he a sensation? Does he know something about what happened? No. He's involved in the search for missing Malaysia Airlines plane and has become an internet sensation thanks to his good looks. Royal Austrian Air Force Flight Lieutenant Russell Adams has set hearts aflutter. I'm reading from an article here, drawing comments such as, not to detract from the search effort, but Russell Adams is a hottie. And there's a big long article about this and the fact he's become an internet sensation, and it just seems in such bad taste to me. Anyway, we're going to continue about the Ukraine situation now. There's been a lot discussed in previous episodes on the ongoing situation there. Who knows what's going to happen next, but just to give you some idea of the difference in opinions actually within the country itself, I wanted to get 2 different people on from different regions, just to give you some taste and an idea. And the 2 regions I chose were 2 places that I've actually used to live. One was Lviv and one was Odessa. And I've made a lot of friends in those areas, but I was always aware that they're very, very different cities, almost polar opposites, and yet within the same country. And I wanted to give you a taste of that today. So I invited 2 young people from these different parts. Lviv in the west, Odessa sort of central, but sort of the east as well, central east. Basically, there's a lot of historical difference from both parts of those regions of Ukraine. And I'm going to interview these 2 young people, Yulia and Tanya, and I'm going to stay out of it to an extent, as I don't want to be too provocative. I just want them to speak. And there's going to be times on this channel where we discuss topics, and I'm going to have a real debate with guests. But this isn't one of those times. I just want them to say what they want to say, and I don't want to provoke them or get into any arguments. So I stayed right out of it and just asked them basically the same questions. I mean, this is no Jeremy Paxman kind of interview. This is just ask the same questions, listen to the answers. So pretty much the same answers, and I didn't interrupt too much. But like I said, in other topics, I will definitely be doing more interrogative interviews. So just to warn you about that, because I know otherwise, if I didn't mention that, A lot of people would say that was kind of pathetic. You just asked the questions and said nothing. But that was the point. That's all I'm trying to say. Just compare the answers, make up your own minds. I do welcome these two people on, and it's very useful of them to come on. And we welcome them and thank them for giving their opinions. It's not for us to criticise their opinions, but just to listen to what they've got to say, and just to give an idea of what's going on there and the different mentalities. Hello, Yulia.
Hello, Scott.
Hi. Thanks for coming on Truth Sentinel today.
Thanks for invitation.
What's the I wanted to ask you the first question, which is, what's the general mood on the streets of Lviv at the moment? Is life continuing as normal?
Well, it's difficult to speak for everyone in Lviv. What concerns me, my friends, my relatives, we've been really tired of all this. We would like to calm down already, working hard to build new, prosperous, democratic country. Of course, life cannot continue as normal after such events.
Okay,
Feeling
right.
of grief for dead, together with the feeling of something unfinished, because everybody understands that this new government, it's not the final version, not the final variant. There is also a feeling of anxiety and fear because of the events in Crimea. We are not sure that Putin will stop here.
Right, okay. Okay, I'm just going to move on to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to interrupt you too much. So, how different are the opinions of people in Lviv that you've spoken to? Would you say most people in the region share your views, or is there lots of different opinions?
Concerning my region, I think that most people share my views. Frankly speaking, I had no opportunity to speak to people from, for example, Odessa. How it happened so that I don't have friends there. But you know, once I spoke with one young man from Donetsk,
Yeah.
first time in his life, just to see with his own eyes what was really going on there. I really respect such people. You know, after being on Maidan, he in all those fairy tales about extremists who walk on the streets with weapons and persecute Russian-speaking population.
So you don't have too many people, say from Odessa, that you've met. But if you did meet one, would you be happy to go out for a drink with them and talk about this situation, or not?
I can say that it is rather difficult to discuss current situation with pro-Russian population. They are rather aggressive. They just don't want to listen. They don't hear, especially older generation. But if the person is okay, then of course I will.
Okay, so it's more about the particular person.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What did you think of Yanukovych? Would you have liked him replaced, or did you think he was doing a good job? What would have been the alternative? Would you like him back in power? Would you allow him back in power?
Of course not. I can say that once our people made a mistake and elected him, and we had to bear with his governing till the next elections. But all this situation showed us things we couldn't believe in. You have to understand, he made a ruin of our country. He lived in absolutely another world than his people did. One more thing. My point of view is that Yanukovych is a criminal. He killed more than 100 of Ukrainians, and he stole millions.
Okay.
That's all about Yanukovych.
Okay. And what do you think of the current temporary president?
Turchinov is really temporarily performing duties of the president. You also must understand that in the current situation, it is very difficult to be on his place. I wouldn't envy him. It is not enough that he has got a plundered country, and here comes Putin, who starts to attack Ukraine from Crimea. Personally, I don't see him as a president in future, but I try not to criticize him.
Okay. People say there's a lot of propaganda coming from all sides, and I can see that when I'm watching the news here and looking at Facebook, and from West Ukraine and from East Ukraine, and different channels. Do you think it's true there's a lot of propaganda? And what do you use as a source of news information?
Of course, there comes propaganda from everywhere. It is so-called now informational war. But I have never seen anything like this dirty, aggressive and intense Russian propaganda war over Ukraine. In Russia, the only source of information are federal television stations, which have been conducting an exercise in brainwashing. All Russian authorities are cleaning the media landscape of independent voices that have the power to shape minds. As a source of news information, I use Ukrainian TV channels and, of course, internet. I think that using different sources, I can try to draw right conclusions about the current situation in the country.
Okay, and do you think people are being manipulated on both sides?
Yes, of course, people are being manipulated, but I don't know, I think they are mainly being manipulated by Russia.
Okay. Okay, my final question to you today is there's been a lot of talk saying that fascists overthrew Yanukovych's government. What's your opinion on that?
I think it's ridiculous. I have been several times on Maidan during this revolution, and I suppose that 90% of revolutionaries were ordinary people like me, like my friends, my family. I have never seen any fascists. I have never seen any weapon in Kiev, except that one in the arms of Berkut.
And that's the Ukrainian military police, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that no one overthrew Yanukovych's government. It was just Yanukovych and his people who ran away.
Okay. Okay, thanks ever so much for coming on and answering those questions, and maybe in the future you'll come on again.
I hope so.
Thanks very much then, Yulia.
Thank you, Scott. Bye.
Okay, goodbye. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, thanks for coming on Truth Sentinel.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome, as always.
Okay.
Let's go straight into the questions. I'm just going to ask the questions and not interrupt too much, as with Yulia. So, question one. What's the general mood on the streets of Odessa at the moment? Is life continuing as normal?
Well, yeah, sure, it's kind of quiet in the streets of Odessa, except for the weekends when both Maidan activists and pro-Russian peaceful demonstrations take place. I have myself attended a demonstration last weekend. I think it was circa 10,000 of people who took part in our pro-Russian one. But as I said, yes, life continues, but of course everyone is worried about the future.
Okay, and how different are the opinions of people in Odessa that you've spoken to? Would you say most people in your region share your views?
Well, I haven't talked to anyone from Lvov. I just haven't got any friends in that part of Ukraine, but it doesn't matter. As we here in Odessa, we have quite a lot who support Maidan movement and share their ideas, despite all the logic for me. And although they are Russian speakers, same as me.
Okay. And would you still be able to go out for a drink, for example, and discuss this situation with someone from Lvov, someone who's more Ukrainian speaking, or would it be too difficult to discuss at the moment?
Scott, that's a difficult question because most of the things we have conversations about these days at work, with friends, with family members, especially since the 20th of February, the snipers shooting day. It's all about politics. I wouldn't say it would be too difficult for me to go out with a person who doesn't share my point of view, but it's like I just don't see why would I actually meet them. This may sound maybe somewhat harsh, but I have so little respect towards those who deliberately ruined the country I was born, I grew up in, and I live at the moment. Nor do I want to discuss the subject or convince them otherwise.
Okay. And what did you think of Yanukovych? Would you have liked him replaced, or did you think he was doing a good job? What would have been the alternative, and would you allow him back into power?
Yanukovych, he was chosen as a president on the president's elections in 2010 by the people of Ukraine. I personally, I never voted for his candidature, but the people of Ukraine did. Uh, I've never thought he was a good candidate, and I never thought he did a good job. Our living during the Yanukovych, he was in charge. Our living was, I would say, decent. Yanukovych has used the forces of nepotism to build the government, but we had some kind of stability, something we lack of now. If that was possible, I would have preferred him to return to Kiev as the legitimate president of Ukraine till the next president's elections that were originally planned for 2015.
Okay. And what about the current temporary president? What do you think of him?
I think he is not the legitimate president of Ukraine.
Okay.
That's it, because I don't want to discuss someone who came to the power that way.
Okay, and people say there's a lot of propaganda coming from all sides, from West Ukraine, from East Ukraine, obviously also in the EU as well, and in the US, I'm sure as well. Do you think that it's true there's a lot of propaganda? And what do you use as a source of information?
All the propaganda, it doesn't come from West Ukraine or from East Ukraine, but from the mass media in Kiev. They publish or tell what they have been paid for. Ukrainian channels, and it has never been a secret, are owned by Ukrainian oligarchs who are told to sponsor Maidan along with the US and the European Union. We all heard that from the news. Internet has become a major tool in this informational battle, and a lot of pro-Ukrainian, pro-European Union, choose how you like to call it, propaganda manipulation or brainwashing has been made since November last year, when President Yanukovych refused to sign the association with the European Union. Russia sometimes does the same. I was checking the news. I have myself noticed a few times they twisted the information in their favor. I don't have a TV and I don't watch it online. I have some internet subscriptions to both Ukrainian. I want to underline that, to both Ukrainian and Russian sources and independent journalists. And once Ukrainian side or Russian side announce a big event or news, I check it on BBC, CNN, Reuters, and I wish all the people did like that too. Probably it would have saved someone's life in Kiev.
Okay. And there's been a lot of talk that fascists overthrew Yanukovych's government. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I agree that fascists, or call them ultra-nationalists, they threw over the Yanukovych government.
Okay. Just a last question, just to ask you, what do you think will happen next in this saga?
Well, it's hard to say, Scott, and I do not think that anyone can predict it in the long run. From my standpoint, something similar may happen. Like, officially, Ukraine hasn't declared itself as a bankrupt, at least not yet. But we are very close to that. The Prime Minister Yatsenyuk travels to Brussels and Washington to not just ask for diplomatic aid, which is the only thing the United Nations is willing to give at the moment, but also to get financial help to, as they say, build the democracy in Ukraine. I do not think the United States, the European Union, or IMF will financially sponsor the country that has an intention to build a new government based on ideologies of ultranationalism, fascism, racism, and discrimination. So eventually, Ukraine has a big chance to run bankrupt. Kiev would remain the place where the most actions will happen. Buildings in the city center would be destroyed, burned out. Terrorist attacks will happen almost every day. Armed militants will fight with the police, with each other, with civils, like we see that now. The southeastern cities like Donetsk, Odessa, Lugansk, Kharkov, will see it and will ask for referendum. The leaders of the right sector may be either killed or put to jail by the current government to get the financial help from abroad. And by the way, one of the leaders, he has been shot down the other day by the police. And yeah, it's a great also likelihood that a terrorist attack by the right sector may happen in government buildings in Kiev, or a terrorist attack even may happen in Verkhovna Rada, which is a Ukrainian parliament. The current government may be ousted, and the right sector and another ultra-nationalist party, Svoboda, will come to the power. The situation in the country would only get worse, and Kiev will become a zone of humanitarian disaster. So eventually, the European Union may officially or unofficially ask Russia to stop the chaos in Ukraine. The southeastern part, it may either join Russia or remain as a federation or a confederation within Ukraine, but Ukraine will never be the same, and Maidan will be cleaned up, and those declassed elements, they would move to Western Ukraine. That's how I see it.
Okay, well, thanks for letting us know about that. It'd be interesting to see what does happen. We'll see if that that does. Thanks a lot for coming on today and answering the questions, and maybe you'll come back again at some point.
Maybe.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Scott.
Goodbye.
Bye.
So, thanks again to Yulia and Tanya for doing that. Really appreciate it. And maybe we'll go back to them at some point in the future. Next, going to move on to talking about fluoridation of the water. It's not a subject I'm greatly interested in, but there's been a lot about it in the news this week, so I thought I'd just talk about it a little bit. I mean, Alex Jones talks about a lot about the fluoride in the water and how it's gradually killing people. Sort of, I think he refers to it as a soft kill. So people don't really take it seriously because it doesn't kill people straight away. It just gradually infects people, infects population with diseases. I mean, there have been scientific analysis of fluoridation of the water saying it's not effective and it doesn't actually do any good. In fact, does a lot of harm. I mean, it's medication of water at the end of the day. Fluoride is poisonous, by the way. I mean, if you're not sure, just check that out. A lot of these things are easy to check on the internet. Fluoride is poisonous, so why is it in our water? It always wondered why there seems to be a lot of poisonous things in the wrong place, like mercury fillings. Mercury is one of the most poisonous substance known to man, and it's actually used for fillings, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I mentioned that to my dentist and he totally agreed, actually, which was even more disconcerting. Basically, the government aren't there to medicate us. I think we should have a choice. If you wanna pop your fluoride tablets into your water, you should be allowed to. And if you don't, then you shouldn't have to be forced to drink it, because the alternative is you have to buy bottled water, which is of course very expensive. Maybe that's the idea. I mean, Public Health England have urged councils to add more fluoride to the waters in the UK, and about 6 million people, 10% of the country, currently live in areas with fluoridated water supplies. I thought it was actually more than that, so I'm quite surprised, but it looks like they're intending to roll that out over a much wider area. It certainly seems like it's in the water where I am, because it tastes like swimming pool water when I drink it. Another thing I wanted to talk about was mind control. I mean, I think all of us are subject to mind control every day, from the TV, internet, and a lot of conspiracy theories talk about mind control and things like Project MK Ultra, which were actually real projects. I mean, these aren't conspiracy theories. You can just check out the facts for that. The CIA did have a massive mind control experiment, which some of them are being sued for. You know, people are getting lawsuits, and they're paying out for some of those as well. This was beginning in the early 1950s. The CIA started asking strange questions in memos like, can we get control of an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will and even against fundamental laws of nature, such as self-preservation? In April 1953, the CIA started developing drugs that could manipulate Soviet spies and foreign leaders. It was kind of like a truth serum. There was a guy called Alan Dulles who complained there weren't enough human guinea pigs to try experimenting on, so they were going to have to forcibly take people off the streets. So that's what they did. You know, if you think it's not possible, well, look at history. You know, they actually did this. They took people off the streets, and they took people from institutions, colleges. They took homeless people, and they used drugs like LSD, and they were testing heroin, and seeing if they could potentially elicit information from these people, whether it would help in sort of probably in interrogation techniques, implanting suggestions, and other forms of mind control. They tested them on mental patients, prisoners, addicts. They injected LSD into 7,000 military personnel without their knowledge. Anyone who's ever tried LSD would know that that's if you didn't know what was happening and it was without your knowledge, that would be an extremely scary experience. And a lot of them did suffer psychotic episodes. They also tried to erase people's memories. So, you know, in the movie Men in Black, you know, that's probably partly based on these kind of things. There was a project called Project Artichoke, and the CIA tested how well hypnosis and morphine could induce amnesia to make people forget. What are they hoping to make people forget? That's what I want to know. And basically, they also studied Chinese brainwashing techniques. So they wanted to try and make interrogations easier. Basically, but unfortunately, they did destroy hundreds of thousands of MK Ultra documents, and some of the documents did survive, and that's why people know about this now. And they've actually admitted it, you know. And some of the people who were experimented on have managed to successfully sue them. So bear that in mind when you think, when you hear people talking about mistrust of the government. You know, it's because of things like this. Governments have sprayed gases over cities to experiment what might happen. They've dragged people off the streets. This has all happened in the past. We'd be naive to think that they're not doing it now. They've probably stepped it up. You know, I remember like 20 years ago, people used to laugh if people said that you know, they're listening to all your phone calls, reading your emails, but you know, they actually admit that now. So that's why a lot of people believe in conspiracies, because usually it turns out a lot of them are true. There's definitely some that are, you know, a little bit bonkers and probably aren't true, although I just keep an open mind to all of it. Just to let you know about topics we'll be discussing in coming shows. You know, we're gonna cover the alien topic. Before you dismiss it, and maybe it's like before the show, maybe check out the Disclosure Project on the internet and listen to the story of Rendlesham Forest. We'll talk about that in a coming episode, and Travis Walton. Those two cases were of particular interest to me, and really made me think there's definitely something in it. We're going to have some guests on to talk about their experiences, what they saw, some witness accounts. We're going to talk about the global elite, population control, 9/11, the Illuminati. Maybe talk about the Mothman incident, genetic engineering. Talk about possible World War III. But we're going to talk about your topic, so please write what you would like talked about in the comments section underneath the videos in the discussion section of Truth Sentinel. It's your channel, okay? I just want to keep stressing that all the time. You know, I'm going to talk about what you want to talk about. So you can help make this channel more popular by helping get guests on that you want on. So if you want a particular guest on, why don't you leave a comment underneath their YouTube channel or on their website or on Facebook or on Twitter and say, come on Truth Sentinel, we'd like to interview you, we'd like to hear what you've got to say. Maybe have put comments under things like Russell Brand's True's videos. Put some comments there, say come on Truth Sentinel. And if enough people start putting comments, we can get the guests we want to appear on our show. I have been listening to other shows. I've listened to a lot of Alex Jones, Caravan to Midnight with John B. Wells. Always good, I think. The topics don't always interest me, but like with Coast to Coast, I always tune in when there's a topic that's of particular interest. But who else? Lip TV. They've got a good lot of videos there. Sonia Poulton used to be on the People's Voice. I'm trying to get in contact with her so that she'll maybe come on for an interview as well. Hagman and Hagman, they're more for religious. If you've got a religious leaning, then they're always good to listen to. I listened to Ben Swan. I thought his show was quite professional and definitely quite good if you're interested in US politics. I'm not so interested in talking about specific politicians and analysing politics just because I can't take it seriously. I think the political system's a joke. I'll talk about that kind of stuff, that it's all a joke. But actually analysing something that is a joke, I don't see the point. I don't want to waste my time on such a stupid system and waste my time talking about the beliefs of MPs that don't represent me in the slightest and just do a terrible job, I think. But nobody decent is going to thrive in the current system. The whole system needs to change. Another person we were thinking of getting on was Bez from the Happy Mondays, if you remember that group. He started appearing in a lot of TV programs recently because he's running for political office. He's the one that used to have the maracas and dance around and looks a bit mad sometimes, but I listened to him on the TV news the other day, and no matter what you think, you might think he looks like he might have taken a few substances, but he makes a lot more sense than most of the politicians out there. So credit to him. I think basically you could drag anyone off the street and they'd make more sense than our politicians anyway that we have. Or in the same way that the CIA dragged people off the street. No news channel will be complete without a weather report at the end. So just to let you know, today's weather in the UK was cold and wet, as usual. Maybe we should call it the modified weather report, like the weather modification systems, HARP. I sometimes say, if you check something out, because I'm aware that there might be some people listening that aren't aware of a lot of the topics that you may be well aware of, like the HARP weather modification system. If you don't believe that the government can actually change the weather these days, then please check out the HARP weather modification system. That's HAARP. Have a look into that and read as much about it as possible. I mean, it's reported that the Chinese and other nations have used the weather modification to change the weather for international events and things like that. but it definitely exists. The HARP weather modification system in the US, and there's a lot of information on it on the internet. At some points we'll look more into chemtrails and talk a bit more about global warming. Global warming that, of course, we've all caused with our aerosols, which I find surprising since most of our aerosols have been confiscated by the immigration department. I think a lot of if there has been damage to the ozone layer, it's probably from all the nuclear testing we've been doing. I mentioned that video of all the nuclear tests since 1962. Coincidentally, that corresponds with the rise in the cancer rate at the same period. It's just coincidence, though, of course. Apparently, the UK Met Office says that British winters are likely to become milder and wetter, like the last one, but cold spells still need to be planned for. And summers are likely to be hotter and drier, but not always, basically, they're saying. So it looks like they've covered all their bases. So they're saying the winters are going to be milder, but not always. And summer's going to be hotter and drier, but not always. So thanks for that, UK Met Office. You've really helped us out there. Let's see, what else can we talk about? We may have covered most of the topics for today, so I'd like to finish on a positive note. Independent media is growing, and on a message of hope, I think more people are speaking out about their distrust of the media, the news and governments, and dissatisfaction with our governments and the police force, and not being able to trust people these days. But basically, just to keep things in perspective, if you've still got food on the table and a roof over your head, then life's not that bad, and there's a lot of injustices in the world, and it does give us a purpose. There's plenty of causes to fight for. Everyone's got their own particular one, and if there wasn't anything to fight for, then it could be a pretty boring world. So at least it's not boring. World events at the moment are definitely not boring, and we do have some control over our immediate vicinity, over what happens around us. So we can make the area around us a much better place. We can be good to people, or we can bring some personal hope to ourselves by trying to affect our immediate surroundings. And if enough people do that, then maybe we all stand a chance. Sound a bit like Jerry Springer. I think I better move on. One thing I would like to talk about is time travel. Is it possible? Theoretically, it sounds like it is possible. Einstein, I think, said that it was possible as well. So if there are any time travelers out there, please get in contact with us. Or maybe they already have in a previous episode, in some kind of weird time lapse. No, never mind, I'll just carry on, sorry. We're also going to talk about, at some point, we'll talk about the coming possible world financial crash. A lot of people believe that there's going to be a world financial crash probably in the next couple of years, and that then there's going to be an electronic currency brought in, and there was a possibility it was going to be Bitcoin. I'm not sure. I haven't actually checked on the price of Bitcoin recently, but it was falling. Last time I checked, it wasn't looking good. If there is anyone out there that would consider sponsoring Truth Sentinel to turn it into a channel where we could finance more research and travel to areas where news is occurring, then please get in contact. At the moment it's completely self-funded and free. If you have any ideas of how this channel can be improved, then please contact us on Facebook, Scott Sentinel, or if you click on the About section of Truth Sentinel YouTube channel, you can send a message just by clicking on the left where it says mail. Okay. Thanks again for listening. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you have a good day. Catch you later.